From hokey death scenes to badly written monologues and characters appearing that make no sense in the context of the movie, the 2010s had many cringe-worthy acting moments that will go down in cinema infamy. These are just a few of the worst offenders of the decade. The concluding chapter of Christopher Nolan's gritty Dark Knight trilogy ended with a bunch of explosive bangs thanks to Bane and his associates, but also with a bit of a fizzle featuring the super unfortunate in-movie death of Marion Cotillard's Miranda Tate, aka Talia al Ghul. After orchestrating a series of huge protests with a rising death toll of innocent Gothamites, Talia al Ghul crashes her truck and with a melodramatic gasp and sigh, falls back dead, but not before detonating her final bomb.
My father's work is done.
The moment is so incredibly hokey and laughable that it would have been perfectly matched in the campy Adam West-led Batman TV series, but coming during Nolan's take on the franchise, it feels hugely out of place. We don't see a lot of Shakespearean villain-style monologues these days, and it's for good reason. They don't tend to sound authentic outside Shakespeare's context, even for a megalomaniacal character, and instead come across as painful exposition that ends up being funny rather than menacing. For example, look at Eddie Redmayne's portrayal of Balaam Abraxas in the Wachowskis' space opera Jupiter Ascending, which follows a young Earth woman named Jupiter who learns she's actually interstellar royalty, a revelation that puts Balaam's control of the universe in jeopardy. Jupiter Ascending is filled with cringe-worthy moments, from Channing Tatum's eyeliner to Kunis's overly earnest performance, but Redmayne wins for one of the worst acted scenes of the past decade.
I create life! And I destroy it.
In the years since, Redmayne himself has admitted his work in Jupiter Ascending left a lot to be desired. He even told GQ in an interview, "I won a prize for it for the worst performance of the year." So yeah, it was a pretty bad performance by all accounts. For many Harry Potter fans, the fact that Hermione Granger ended up with Ron Weasley and not Harry was an unsatisfying way to end the character's story. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 did its part to muddy those waters, featuring an intimate scene between Harry and Hermione while Ron is off looking for Salazar Slytherin's Locket Horcrux. In order to make a despondent Hermione buck up for a minute, Harry asks her to dance, and they hip and dip around awkwardly to Nick Cave's haunting song, "Oh Children." The actors look incredibly uncomfortable not just dancing with each other, but on their own, and no amount of fancy camera work could have helped them pull off the scene. If it weren't for Nick Cave's vocals and beautiful lyrics, the moment would have been a complete disaster, even as it foreshadows Ron's eventual jealous blow-up about Harry and Hermione's possibly romantic feelings for each other. Quentin Tarantino has a long history of inserting himself into his movies, and Django Unchained is arguably one of his worst cameo moments. This antebellum revisionist history features Jamie Foxx's Django, an escaped slave assisted by dentist-turned-bounty hunter Dr. King Schultz out to wreak bloody vengeance on slavers, including Calvin Candy, who has kidnapped his love, Hildy von Shaft. As Django's rampage heats up, the movie cuts to a flashback in which Tarantino appears, speaking in a dodgy Australian accent before Django kills him that completely derails the climax of the film. Yahoo News UK suggested that Tarantino sported an Australian accent because he couldn't do a passable Southern one, which begs the question of why he was even included in the movie at all, other than his director-sized ego, that is. Sometimes there's nothing even the best actors can do when the script veers into overwrought territory, which is unfortunately the case with Interstellar, Christopher Nolan's story about the intersection of science, technology, and family, as well as wormholes and event horizons, since Nolan can't make a movie without a mind-bending twist or two. Sadly, the audience is well yanked out of the complicated but well-crafted story when Anne Hathaway's character Amelia Brand prattles off a Hallmark greeting card of a monologue that sounds considerably less than scientific.
Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space.
This line comes as Brand makes her case that love is a quantifiable force in the universe that can actually be used as a tool of measurement. A pretty ridiculous concept, even though in the logic of the movie she turns out to be right. But just because the movie makes the concept real doesn't mean that this speech introducing it works, and even Hathaway's considerable talent can't make the monologue sound anything but forced. Thankfully, the scene is only 2 minutes of pure cheddar in an otherwise compelling sci-fi drama, but it's also enough to stick out as one of the worst acted scenes of the past decade.
3 Americans are hailed as heroes for foiling an attack on a high-speed train in Europe.
It was a real-life event that made news around the globe. 3 American men traveling from Amsterdam to Paris thwarted a would-be terrorist mass shooter through their own quick thinking and selfless bravery. Spencer Stone, Anthony Sadler, and Alex Sklarlatos wrestled the weapon from the gunman and saved the life of one of his victims, American Mark Mugallian, who was the first to identify the terrorist. Later, French authorities found the shooter had been armed with 300 rounds of bullets, more than enough to have killed most of the people on the train had he not been stopped. Clint Eastwood directed the 5:17 to Paris, and in a surprising move, decided to cast the 4 American survivors, including the gunshot victim Mugallian, as themselves. Unfortunately, the experiment didn't exactly pay off in this big-budget Hollywood recreation of real events. These men are heroes and did an incredible service for their fellow passengers, but they're not professional actors, and it's very clear to audiences.
Look at the baby soda, Spencer! Alex, shut the heck up.
The 2010s saw Nicolas Cage in a number of dreadful movies, but Drive Angry stands out as one of the worst. The actor delivers a furious but empty turn as John Milton, a man who has been dead 10 years and returns to Earth from hell in order to save his infant granddaughter from being sacrificed to Satan. His one-liners fall so flat that you'd think an Acme truck rolled over them.
Nothing of this earth can kill me.
Not of this earth.
It's hard to pick a least favorite scene. The absurd gunfight sex scene? Milton peeing fire? Cage rebounded in later years with more critically acclaimed fare like the gonzo Mandy, but for a decent chunk of the decade, it seemed like he may have permanently lost his way. And Drive Angry is a perfect example of why. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.